Well, I believe we have arrived at what started me on this video journey. It was these pictures. I believe this is the day of William Haliday Allnutt's funeral. In fact, I believe this is Saturday, December 22nd, 1962.
A date which will live in infamy.
3 days before Christmas. The last Christmas that President John F. Kennedy will be around for. I believe this for a number of reasons. As we all know, Grandpa died on December 19th. Now, the following Saturday was only 3 days away, but to wait another week would mean Grandpa had to stay on ice at the hospital across the street for another whole week. That had to have cost money, and what a bummer for Christmas. Grandpa across the street on ice. I bet you want to see more of these pictures. This is Granny, aka Rena Belle Conaway. I adored Granny. She was born on March 15th, 1887. On the Conaway family farm, just barely in Union County, Mississippi. Granny was the youngest of 11 children. Born to William Monroe Conaway, who died when Granny was 3, and Serena Frances Epting, who died when Granny was just 18. When Granny was 19, she married William Haliday Allnutt. Bill and Rena Belle went on to have 5 daughters, all born and raised during the Great Depression. I last saw Granny in 1981, 19 years after her husband of 46 years had died. Granny wore her wedding ring for 60-something years.
You done grieve my life.
All right, back to funeral pics. Here's Granny at the family go-to spot for family photos. I believe this is across the street. See this gate thing back here? I have been looking for that. But I think that building that you're going to see in so many photos was actually right here in what is now this vacant lot. And I've tried to figure out if possibly that ornamental gate thing was right here. So next to Granny in this photo is my Aunt Frances. She was the oldest of the Allnutt girls. She, to me, always seemed to be this gigantic Amazon woman. I mean, look how tiny Rena Belle Allnutt is. How did she give birth to this giant of a woman, Ellen Frances Simpson, who must have been in the choir, it looks like. I think Aunt Frances kind of held things together at the house because my grandfather and Granny were such intense drunks. Somebody had to keep the shit going together.
Don't tell my mama.
Next up in the pictures of Grandpa Allnutt's funeral day is this beauty right here. Here's Aunt Dottie, flanked by Mom, Lucy, and Aunt Ann. Aunt Dottie was so darned cute, but she was always in the shadow of my mother. Here they are in, I believe, Newport, Arkansas, where they were both born. They were the only two that were born there. Aunt Dottie on the trike lived in the house with Grandpa Bill and Granny for years, I think at least a decade. Here's Aunt Dottie and the great snowstorm in Memphis, the great Memphis snowstorm of December 1963. I am 6 months old. I am sure this is on McDavitt. I'm going to have a whole other video about that.
The big snowstorms.
Aunt Dottie was musical. She is the only Allnutt that I've ever heard of having any musical talent at all, except for me. And finally, we have the fifth Allnutt sister, Aunt Ann. She was always my favorite aunt, even though I had spent the least amount of time with her. That's because she lived in Huntsville, Alabama. She was the secretary to the commanding general of Redstone Arsenal, which was where we developed the intercontinental ballistic missile.
T-minus 50.
I saw the movie Dr. Strangelove in college for the first time, and this whole Tracy Reed scene, I just immediately identified her with my Aunt Ann at Redstone Arsenal, where she was George C. Scott's secretary.
I'm not sleepy either.
I know how it is, baby.
Tell you what you do. You just start your countdown, and old Bucky will be back here before you can say, blast off.
Whiskey will not let me pray.
I know I said finally on the intro to Aunt Ann, but I did in fact have four Allnutt aunts. The second oldest was Jean Colleen. This is the only picture I have of her as an adult. I never met her. She was never discussed. I don't believe my brothers ever met her. In response to a question from me, I vaguely remember my mom indicating she was mentally retarded or something like that. Something was wrong with her. I did find that she died in the mid-70s in Long Beach, California, of all places. All right, enough of the four aunts already. Here we are at Ruby Lucille Allnutt, Mom. Now, some of you may be wondering, why is my normally high-fashion mother dressed in this smock? Well, it's not a smock. In fact, it's the maternity wear attire of the day. Because guess who's in there at 4 months pregnant?
Running 3-4 different ways. She threw rocks and gravel. Wood, Lord, all in my face.
Here's what I believe is the only picture of 4 out of the 5 Allnutt sisters with their mother. The only person missing is the mysterious Aunt Jean. And who took this picture? I think we can rule out Grandpa. We'll never know. I do know that I never got to meet my grandfather, William Haliday Allnutt, whom I was named after, but I did get to go to his funeral.
Brought to you by